Welcome to the Real World. My name's Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 62 of the Real World podcast. We are talking all about our favorite twin films. This is kicking off a new series on the podcast called Film Fights. And in this Film Fights episode, we're talking about our favorite twin movies. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. If you're new, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Make sure you share this on social media. Follow us on social media. All those links are in the description below. Make sure you leave a comment with your favorite twin films. First things first, we're going to kick things off as we usually do with some movie news. All right, first up with movie news, very interesting program being started by AMC Theaters. They are going to try what's called the phone-friendly program. For $50, patrons to AMC Theaters can use their phones during the screening of a film. Phone use without payment may result in a felony offense with a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. So I guess I'm never going to AMC Theaters again. Next up, over at the MCU, Midnight Angels is being developed as a series for Disney+. The Midnight Angels are comic book characters from the Black Panther comic book line. They were, of course, first introduced in the MCU in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, played by Okoye and Anika. They will be the main characters of the series, but many more characters from Wakanda could show up, including Shuri, Nakia, M'Baku, and Prince T'Challa, who was revealed in the post-credit scene of Wakanda Forever. So no word yet on when this series will be released. They haven't even started filming yet, but very much looking forward to it. The Crow reboot has found a home after many months of deliberation trying to find a new distributor for this latest reboot of the Crow film series. Lionsgate has picked up the film. They will distribute the movie next year in 2024. There's no solid release date yet, but I am looking forward to this. I'm a big fan of the original Crow movie with Brandon Lee. The actor taking over the role from him is Bill Skarsgård, whom I'm a big fan of. People will know from the It movies, Barbarian, many other films, John Wick Chapter 4, he was just in. So very interested to see his take on this character and just what the vision for it is. The original is very iconic in its kind of gothic style, so I'm curious to see how they update that. George Romero's final Dead film is coming soon. They found a director to helm this filmmaker's final movie that he never got to make before he passed away back in 2017. Brad Anderson will take over directing for George A. Romero, who of course directed some of the best zombie movies of all time, including Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. So he made many films in this franchise, and the first, three are all-time classics. So very interested to see what his final film was going to be. Hopefully they stick close to his original vision and his script. It is titled Twilight of the Dead. Very much looking forward to that. No release date yet, but they should get started shooting very soon. The latest entry in the MonsterVerse franchise is very close to arriving on Apple TV+. It's a series titled Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. The trailer debuted online this week, and I was blown away. I mean, clearly they have a huge budget for this thing. Godzilla shows up, as well as a few other monsters that we haven't seen before. Kurt Russell and his son Wyatt Russell are playing the same character at two different time eras, two different points in his life. So that should be a lot of fun. John Goodman is coming back from Kong Skull Island, who was certainly a highlight in that movie. So just a lot of stuff happened in this trailer that I wasn't expecting. And Kong Skull Island being my favorite of the MonsterVerse movies, this looks like it's leaning into that kind of style a little bit more, which I'm very much looking forward to. So we'll have to wait for that series, which drops on Apple TV Plus later this year. All right, folks, that's it for movie news. Now we are going to jump into our main topic, which is Film Fights twin movies, unique topic here that we haven't covered before. We'll explain what exactly that means in just a moment. But joining me once again on the podcast is Bert. How you doing, man?
Doing great. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us again. And also joining us on this episode is Josh.
Hey, thank you.
All right, great. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to kick things off with these twin films, this topic that we've decided to cover, kind of a unique topic for us. Usually it's about a specific actor or director or a genre or a franchise of some kind, but this was a unique idea that we came up with that we wanted to cover. So film fights, just so you guys who don't know, if you're on the Real World Facebook page, you know that pretty much every day I try to post a film fight between two similar movies or two movies with the same actor or something like that. And we kind of just discuss which one is our favorite out of the two. And so that's kind of what we're doing here today. Now, we picked twin films. Twin films, very simply, are two movies with very similar plots, which usually were also released around the same time. So within about a year or so of each other, these two films were both released with kind of the same concept or idea behind it. But sometimes there's very different outcomes. So we wanted to discuss some of these. So it's going to go a little bit differently today. Each of us have two picks of, so 4 films that we're going to be discussing. So what we're going to do is we're going to just basically break down the plots, what the plot of both movies are, the kind of shared idea behind the movies. And then we're going to explain kind of the differences, how, the approach is different, the technique is different, the filmmakers, just different choices that they made while approaching the kind of the same subject matter, if you will. And then we're going to kind of just go through each of us and say which one we think is the winner between these two, which film do we enjoy more. So should be a lot of fun. Again, it's a unique topic, but it should be a good time. We are kicking things off with Bert. Give us your first 2 twin films.
My 2 films to start off with are Flight Plan and Red Eye from 2005. So just to give a brief synopsis, Flight Plan is a more serious film. A woman and her young daughter are returning home from overseas after a tragedy. And while on the flight home, her daughter goes missing. The woman is played by Jodie Foster. And so, and I'm going to reference Jodie Foster, even though it's not her character name, because I feel to help keep these two people, these characters in films separate. I think it's just easier to do that. So in Red Eye, a woman played by Rachel McAdams is flying across the country, and during the flight, she finds out that she's sort of this pawn in an assassination plot, not on the plane, but happening on the ground somewhere. So there's some obvious similarities that the majority of both of these films take place in the air on an airplane. And one thing I found is interesting is the women's employment plays a key factor in both of the plots. So that's interesting. Rachel McAdams' character, she's in the motel business. Jodie Foster, she's an aviation engineer, and it factors, both of them, it factors big time into the story. So that's kind of interesting. Some differences. So Red Eye, the one with Rachel McAdams, it's more of a fun thriller. And it's the plot, I guess you could say it's a bit more outlandish. It's certainly convoluted. The idea that these bad guys would go to this many chain of steps to try to accomplish what they're going to accomplish. So, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's more like a fun kind of journey. Rachel McAdams and is Killian or Cillian Murphy? I forget. Killian, yeah. He's always fantastic. And he kind of plays more of a normal guy for once.
Yeah.
For a good bit of it, at least. And then, Flight Plan, Jodie Foster's film, it's much more of a psychological drama. It's a lot darker, kind of grim, often. And Jodie Foster's performance is just terrific here. She kind of takes it beyond what a lot of actors, I think, could. The amount of emotion that she portrays at times is just really immense. And Peter Sarsgaard, unrelated to the other Sarsgaards, though, mind you. And I was shocked to find that out. I thought for sure, he's like at least a cousin or something. But no,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. It's just coincidence that he has that last name, but he's just chilly with his portrayal. It's really great. And then Sean Bean grounds the film, pun not intended, I guess. There. So you got two films that cover some of the same turf, but vastly different tone wise. Although Red Eye does obviously have its intense moments. And so I guess at this point, I could just tell you my pick between the two. Is that probably the best way to go with? Yeah. So this is a really tough one. I like both these films a lot. They're probably 4-star films for me. And I guess if I had to leave one behind, I'd probably leave Flight Plan behind, just because Red Eye's more fun. It's more like guilty pleasure kind of fun. I have watched it more times over the years. So that's what I've got. Fellas, what do you think?
Gotcha. Great stuff. Yeah, this was tough for me too. I gave them the same rating. I gave them both 3 stars because I really agree that they're both really well made, but yet they do have their differences. So Wes Craven directed Red Eye, who's a director that I really like. Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, he's been in the horror genre for a long time.
Yeah.
And, it's really well directed. It's really good. It's really tightly edited. Is what I felt with that one. Great lead performances, like you said. McAdams and Murphy are both excellent in it. Flight Plan, like you said, it's a little more serious, more intense. The performances are really good. I mean, you mentioned Jodie Foster. She's great. Sarsgaard, I think this is the first thing I remember seeing him in. This really performance stands out to me still as one of his better ones. And then, of course, the great Sean Bean. We all, like him, and seeing him show up in a role where he doesn't die is always fun. So, yeah, really good, though. Really, both are very good. I feel like they both kind of fall apart in the third act a little bit for me. It gets a little too crazy. And like you're saying with the kind of convoluted plots, kind of like so that had to happen and that had to happen in order for all this to, it's kind of a little bit of a stretch. You have to suspend disbelief a little bit for both of these.
Yeah.
But really good movies. I think I actually lean towards Flight Plan on this one. Actually, I think the performances are just really engaging all the way throughout the runtime. And so, yeah, that's the one I lean towards a little bit. This is a loose remake. It's not a direct remake, but it is very similar to the plot of The Lady Vanishes by Alfred Hitchcock, which was made way back in like the 1930s. It's on a train. Plane. And so definitely check that one out if you haven't. But Josh, give us your thoughts on these.
Yeah, I really liked both of them. I also gave them the same rating. I was torn of what to do about Flight Plan, but I ended up giving them both 3.5 stars. What really stood out to me with Red Eye was just especially in the beginning, the realistic conversations and like actual questions you would ask the other person and stuff like that. Cause it's kind of awkward to be on a plane with someone you don't know. And when you keep running into them, like, yeah, I just thought that was really well done. And then just the whole, I guess, psychological aspect from Flight Plan is what really stuck out to me. And that there were several of those like, oh my goodness, moments where you're like, are we sure this isn't an M. Night Shyamalan film? So I do lean a little bit more towards Flight Plan. I think it landed the plane a little better in the third act than Red Eye.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, first film fight down. Flight Plan is the winner of that one. Now we are moving on to Josh's first picks. What do you got?
The Road to El Dorado and The Emperor's New Groove, both released in 2000, one being DreamWorks, the other one being Disney. The similar plot here is both are animated buddy comedy films set in what is now Latin America. Unashamedly just pulled that from Wikipedia. It already figured it out. But I also saw that you don't really notice it unless you like, I was watching it on Amazon for El Dorado and I was pausing it and it gives us like X-ray things. So it said that Elton John, I guess, as the singer is the narrator. I was like, oh, I wouldn't have pinned him as a narrator, but so in which case both films have a narrator. Both films have Jaguar characters and that also corner characters on a cliff. Both have villains that transform into a cat. And both villains use someone or something else to do their dirty work. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, as I'm like looking at both these, I'm like, oh, there's a little more similarities than just on the surface level. As I was going through the differences, it was interesting because Like Emperor's New Groove is more like enemies to friends as far as like the buddy comedy part of it, and El Dorado is more like friends, then to enemies, then to friends again. I was just looking at like the characters themselves, and in El Dorado, Tulio and Miguel, which that was cool to see. It was Kenneth Branagh doing a voice acting. I don't think I've ever seen him do voice acting before. But their goal is to get rich and get home. And Cusco, he's already rich. His goal is to get home and be himself again. And then Pacha's already home, and his goal is to secure his home. And obviously their choices differ throughout the film. Like Tulio ends up choosing love over riches, even though he started wanting riches, ends up choosing love. Miguel chooses the people over riches, and eventually his friend. But on the Emperor's New Groove side, we got Pacha choosing sacrificial friendship and family over securing his future, much like the gold that would have secured Tulio and Miguel's future. So I guess that was a similarity. And then Cusco chooses friendship and the townspeople over his selfishness. So there's some similarities and some differences here about where they started to go with things. They are both comedies as well. And I thought, I don't know, I personally think New Groove just does it way better. There's still some gags and chuckles between Tulio and Miguel, which I think it's mostly just between them as far as the humor. But pretty much everyone is funny in Emperor's New Groove, laughs all around. And I thought the friendship between, although I liked Tulio and Miguel's relationship, their friendship, but I thought overall it was better done in New Groove. So for me, New Groove is the winner. El Dorado, this go around, I haven't seen it since like I was a kid, I don't think. So watching it this time, it was definitely not near as good as I remember it being. But Emperor's New Groove was just as good as I remember it being.
Gotcha. Great. Yeah. Just got to rewatch these. These aren't ones that I grew up with. So I've only seen each of them. Road to El Dorado I've only seen twice now. Emperor's New Groove I've seen a couple more times. But yeah, it's interesting. I think El Dorado is, it has some issues, I think, script-wise. I think it tries to be a little too racy, a little too adult in some of the humor and the jokes. Definitely not one I would show my kids.
No, I didn't remember that either from being a kid. I was a little surprised. I mean, the butts, it's hard to miss that, but.
Right. There's also some animation that they try to blend some 2D and 3D animation in certain parts of the movie. I was
surprised by that.
Yeah, it kind of didn't really work. It was early days on that kind of stuff, and it just didn't really work visually. The characters, like you're mentioning, played by Branagh and Kevin Kline, is another actor I really like. I think they're kind of the reason to watch because their performances are really fun. Yeah. But their characters just aren't different enough. What I like about New Groove is that Pacha and Cusco are so completely different.
Oh yeah,
that their back and forth is just great throughout the whole movie. And so that's definitely something that stood out to me. I was shocked to learn that they got the team from The Lion King. I mean, you got Hans Zimmer, Elton John, Tim Rice as lyricist, the music crew from Lion King. The award-winning, Lion King soundtrack is back on El Dorado, and it just doesn't hold a candle to Lion King. I mean, it's fine, it's not. I
didn't even think it was that great, just as is.
Yeah, it was just, I didn't either. I was not impressed with it, honestly. So, yeah, that was a letdown there for sure. But New Groove, I think the music in that is more fun. I think we have a great character arc at the center of it. I think the animation's better. I really enjoy both David Spade and John Goodman are just, again, such total opposites that they play off each other so well. A great villain, and now I like the villain and New Groove a lot better as well. And so yeah, for me, New Groove does come out on top. I don't rate either of these particularly high. I think I give Road to El Dorado like 1.5 or 2 stars. New Groove is like a 3. It's definitely not, for me, upper tier Disney film. It has some issues. Like the narration, for example, I don't think really works. I think that kind of drags the movie down a little bit. So I have some issues with it, but it's still enjoyable. So yeah, that's my thoughts. New Groove gets my vote. Bert, what do you think about these?
Yeah, I'm going to say in El Dorado, there were a couple times where I wasn't even sure which of the 2 main guys were talking because their voices are different accent, but still there were a couple times where I was like, wait, which character just said that? Some really great points made. I had not seen El Dorado until this week, so first time. Emperor's New Groove is, if we did a top 10, maybe even top 5 animation films of all time. It's it would be in there because it's just I've always loved the film. I mean, I'm a big David Spade fan, and he just gets to rip on everything that he wants, and the animation backs it up so well, that it's really just so extremely funny. And then Josh, I think you were talking about how every character is funny. I mean, Eartha Kitt even, has some funny lines. Patrick Warburton, he's got. I mean, the thing is, it's so quotable because there's so many lines. At least me personally, that I have picked up over the years, like Patrick Warburton's "My spinach puffs," like that kind of stuff. Like it doesn't mean anything, but it's you say it in the kitchen. So there's so many. So much comedy that it just kind of blows away El Dorado for me. And I probably would give El Dorado like 1.5 stars. I didn't hate it. I did chuckle a few times, but that's really about all I got out of it, was just a laugh here or there from the two leads.
Gotcha. Great. Well, it's a clean sweep for The Emperor's New Groove on that one. 3 votes. It wins that film fight. Okay. Very good. Well, we're on to my first pick, which is Deep Impact and Armageddon. So Deep Impact released May 8th, 1998. Armageddon just a couple months later on July 1st, 1998. Big competition. These movies, were coming out at the same time, and it was a big deal. Not that I remember necessarily. I was very young when they came out, but from what I've read, that was kind of the big summer battle that summer. Deep Impact, I didn't realize had been in development since 1970s. This movie, people had been trying to get it made for a long time. Spielberg eventually got attached to direct, but the production went too long, and he ended up having to make his other film, Amistad, which is a great film. But they ended up getting Mimi Leder to direct this. She had directed a couple movies that I really like. One's called The Peacemaker with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman. But this is loosely based on the classic sci-fi film When Worlds Collide, and also loosely adapted from a novel called Hammer of the Gods. Basic plot is a meteor is on a collision course with the Earth, and humanity must respond to survive. That's the basic idea here, but it gets even more similar than I realized. I've only seen these movies a couple times and rewatched them this week. The major differences here in plot and tone, I'll talk about. Deep Impact, the way they deal with the meteor is the exact same way that they deal with it in Armageddon. They send astronauts up to blow it up. That's their plan. Of course, in Armageddon, they're not astronauts. They're oil drillers who they train to be astronauts in 12 days, as is stated in the film. So clearly, just from that, you can tell the difference between these movies. Armageddon is a sci-fi movie. It's much more comedic in its tone. It's directed by Michael Bay. That should be all you need to know, right? That's what they're going with, right? Big budget, silly, ridiculous kind of idea, right? Whereas Deep Impact, they take it a lot more seriously. They actually consulted NASA. They consulted several astronomers. They really tried to do their research on, what would it be like if a meteor was coming to Earth? How would you respond? What would you try to do? That kind of thing. So it's more dramatic and realistic in its kind of approach. So Deep Impact, which I forgot to mention, Mimi Leder, who directed this, this film is the highest grossing film from a female director until Twilight came out in 2008. So about 10 years later. So a pretty big accomplishment for her. And you can just tell it's directed by a woman. She cares so much about the characters. It's really all about their relationships, right? I mean, it's all about all these different characters from different walks of life. I like that we get the president, we get a news reporter, we get a kid, we get like all kinds of different people and their perspectives on this event. And she just cares so much about the emotional, weight of it. It, has tons of biblical references in it, which I really like. There's the ark, there's the president says a prayer, there's scripture verses they're quoting. So all of that stuff I really enjoyed. The cast, I mean, it's just a stacked cast, just like Armageddon, which I'll get to in a minute. But Morgan Freeman as the president, I think he's one of the best movie presidents. I think he's just really good in that role.
Been president more than once.
He has. That's right.
2 terms.
Yeah. Robert Duvall, Téa Leoni, Vanessa Redgrave, Maximilian Schell, James Cromwell, Jon Favreau shows up, Richard Schiff, who's a guy I really like, Doug Ray Scott, who we've talked about on our Mission Impossible podcast, Charles Martin Smith, Kurtwood Smith, just a ton of great actors that I really like the entire cast of this movie. I like every single one of these actors. Elijah Wood is the standout for me. I think, he's very young here and he's doing a great job in his role. Again, very human, very relatable. It's, these movies both ask, great questions about like, what would you do if the world was about to end? Like, who would you contact? Who would you try to mend relationships with? All these big questions that these movies are asking that I think Deep Impact deals with really well. Also has a great score by James Horner, which I noticed more this time. So that's kind of that side. If we go over to Armageddon, first of all, Armageddon had a much bigger budget. Deep Impact's budget was about 80 million, whereas Armageddon had a $140 million budget. So a lot more time and money went into the effects work. That's something that, of course, people are going to discuss with these big disaster movies. How does it look? Like, how does the destruction scenes look? They definitely look better in Armageddon. There's no doubt about it. They spend a lot more, money on it. Digital effects are still early days here. We're still in the 90s, but they look pretty solid. They hold up pretty well for the most part. They're blending practical effects in there too. This one, another stat cast: Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, Billy Bob Thornton, Will Patton, Steve Buscemi, Owen Wilson, Michael Clark Duncan, William Fichtner, Peter Stormare, Keith David, Jason Isaacs. I mean, this is just, the list goes on and on of just big, heavy-hitting actors, many of whom have led their own movies. So this is a really big A-list cast. For me, the characters we focus on, right? Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck. First of all, Bruce Willis is doing a very bad Southern accent. I don't know whose idea that was. It was a really bad idea.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't even.
He basically abandons it after like the first 4 or 5 scenes. So
like Kevin Costner in Robin Hood.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it's that level of not good. So that kind of took me out of it. Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler, I like both of them individually. I just didn't really feel their chemistry on this one, honestly. On this rewatch, I didn't really feel like they really connected on screen. So that was kind of frustrating. Like I mentioned, the screenplay is just kind of ridiculous, the whole idea behind it. But again, the tone is lighter, so it kind of works. You kind of don't really think about it too much, and you just kind of go with it. Very kind of ridiculous comedy in here as well. Some of the performances are really fun to watch. Some of the dialogue is great too. Will Patton, I found to be a standout here. His character is a very... I'm sorry?
Talked about him last week.
Yeah, that's right. We sure did on Remember the Titans. Yeah, he's got a very kind of small character thing going on. It's just a couple scenes, but it's really impactful, especially at the end. So very entertaining, big budget blockbuster film. I just didn't feel that Armageddon had the substance that Deep Impact had. So I actually went with Deep Impact on this. I know I'm in the minority, probably. I'll see what you guys think. Bert, you want to give us your thoughts on these two?
Sure. Well, I guess I'll approach it from this direction. The trailer for Deep Impact promised an Armageddon-like look and feel. And so I was disappointed. It's got the giant tidal wave that knocks all the buildings down. So I went to the movies for that, and then I got 90 minutes of people's relationships. So the characters were annoying. They're not annoying, but it's just, I think if you're going to give us that much build up to the one thing that people are, going to the summer movie for, then I think that you better make them really interesting. And I just didn't feel that they were that engaging as characters. There's nothing really wrong with it. There's fine acting and all that, you know what I mean? So it's just knowing what it's up against with Armageddon. I kind of feel like it's like, well, let's get on with it. I feel like, honestly, a better movie, if I can interject this and Mimi can redo our own movie, is start with, the big tidal wave. Make that about halfway through the film. I want to see what happens to the people after they get to their destination. Like, I have questions about that. Like, that to me would be very interesting. And I think it's kind of a missed opportunity Armageddon is, I saw it in the theater and it just absolutely blew me away. One of my favorite films of all time. It's a very flawed film. I could probably hack on it for a while, but I'm not going to. It's just from start to finish, it's so much fun. Most of the jokes land, and it's another one of these, where like every actor in the film gets their moment of either something really touching or really hilarious. The action's fun. I mean, it's probably like a 4.5 star, maybe 5-star film for me, just because of the amount of sheer entertainment that it pushes in that 2 hours. So I'm definitely Team Armageddon. I rewatched Deep Impact and I liked it less than last time. I think I'd give it maybe like 2 stars.
Okay. Well, I'm only at 3 on Armageddon and 3.5 on Deep Impact. So it's not a huge disparity for me. Yeah, that was just how it shook out this time. I on my first watch, I liked Armageddon a lot more than on this rewatch. I don't know what it was, but certain things just stood out to me more. Josh, give us your thoughts on these.
Actually, real quick, which movies did you guys see first? I guess because you saw both in theater, Bert, that you saw Deep Impact first. Is that released first?
I think that came out first, didn't it, Cam?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I saw Deep Impact first.
Okay. I was just curious, just because it plays in sometimes, and it probably plays into mine heavily. I watched Armageddon first, and then Deep Impact, and I don't know. To me, everything in Deep Impact was just not as good as Armageddon did it. I thought the relationships in Armageddon like really grabbed me. That was like I think that's the strongest point in the film, was just the relationships, mainly between the 3 characters, the 3 leads there, father, son, and fiance, or father, daughter, and fiance. But or father, son, and anyway, because he says that at the end. But yeah, I thought those elements were really strong and really powerful. And then I don't know, I think it was just too many characters in Deep Impact, because like with Robert Duvall's character, you're supposed to, and I didn't feel any emotions for any of the astronauts until the very end when they were saying goodbye. And it was until only a couple of them were saying goodbye. The other ones, whatever. But like, I don't know, to me, it didn't land there. But Elijah Wood's character and that whole situation I thought was really good. And that was the strong point for me, that I thought was really well done. But even stuff like when they take off, like in Armageddon, it's just like, you're kind of like in awe. It's this powerful moment. It's almost like you're there. And then Deep Impact's like, oh yeah, they took off, by the way. And I don't know. It's just like every hit that Armageddon had, it was just a swing and a miss on Deep Impact for me. It was just, okay, that's so weird. Even like, I know Cam, you mentioned the president's prayer. I was like, oh, he's going to pray. It's so cool. And then he just gives like the stereotypical, almost like saying like, oh, let me give you a Bible verse, John 3:16. It was almost, he kind of phoned in the prayer, and it was like, oh, well, that was disappointing. That's supposed to inspire everybody. I don't know. Yeah, for me, it was just too many characters. It sounded like Don't Look Up took notes from Deep Impact. I guess in a good way, but I almost think that movie is even better, and I did not like that movie. So yeah, for me, Armageddon definitely wins this one hands down. The only negative I can say is the 12 days premise, because that's obviously not realistic, but otherwise, fantastic film.
Gotcha. Yeah, I might just be bayed out. Honestly, we did our Transformers podcast a couple months ago, and Bay just, man, he's kind of irritating me at the moment. So he's very stylish. He shoots things very well. It's just a little too much for me. Whereas again,
I can see that.
Took the more realistic approach. Almost felt like a documentary in some scenes. So
yeah,
I don't know. But anyways, so Armageddon wins our 3rd film fight. All right, so that's it for my first pick. Now we're on to Bert's second pick. What do you got?
I have got from 1997 Volcano versus Dante's Peak. Both came out the same year. In Volcano, the movie, a volcano sort of attacks LA, downtown LA, and this disaster expert has to kind of figure out a way to save the city. Whereas in Dante's Peak, you could say it's loosely based on the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. There's a town that's sort of at the base of this dormant volcano, and then, much to the surprise of the town, the volcano just sort of suddenly erupts, and this volcano expert has to try to get out of the way of it. That's really about all he does, if you think about it. So obviously both deal with this unexpected eruption of a volcano. Volcanoes definitely a lot more formulaic as far as it's more like an action disaster movie, I'd say, overall. And as I said, the Dante's Peak is more like loosely based on the Mount St. Helens eruption. Although when that happened, everybody knew it was coming. Some people, a lot of people I think still died in the path of it. But getting back to the comparisons, the volcano is definitely a lot more like a popcorn munching kind of situation, but it's just kind of soulless, I guess I feel like. And lots and lots of implausible things happen. And not to say they don't in Dante's Peak, but just in Volcano, the lava just happens to run right through downtown LA. It probably passed Nakatomi Plaza on the way through. You know what I mean? And then also in Volcano, it came out shortly after the Rodney King beatings in LA. So the movie kind of like uses this movie to try to help, I don't know, heal that situation points by using a subplot within the story. And I'm just going, oh, come on. And I've seen this film probably 2-3 times over the years. So it's not, I'm not bashing it too much. But it's just, there's not any actual tension really in Volcano. I don't actually feel like there's ever any like real danger. I mean, some people die, but I just don't feel like it actually builds up some actual tension. Yeah. And Dante's Peak, it's more of a story, I feel like. I think it forces us to get acquainted with the characters a lot more. And so it's not just lava too. It's, in Dante's Peak, you've got these tremendous scenes of massive debris coming down rivers and things like that. They did a lot of miniature work, and I think it just looks tremendous on screen. So I think the action, I think the effects look better. The film just overall, I just like Dante's Peak. It really tightens the screws a lot of times, like especially toward the end, that pickup scene. Which I always feel claustrophobic just thinking about it. And so I didn't say a lot about the characters, but I think the acting is fine in both. But to me, it's really just that I like the intensity and the look and effects of Dante's Peak so much better. So I think it's a much better film. I'm probably at least 4 stars on Dante's Peak and 2 stars on Volcano. So I tried to pick a couple films where there was a much bigger disparity in my ratings. But that's what I've got.
All right. So, these two are both entertaining, but definitely I think one comes out on top, and that is Dante's Peak for me as well. I think that as much as I like Tommy Lee Jones, he's an actor I really enjoy in everything he does, but it's really the script that fails him. He's just not a lot of characterization there. Even the father-daughter story, which, I'm a sucker for, it just falls flat, So it just didn't work story-wise, like you said. I think Dante's Peak has a much better story. Pierce Brosnan, always great. Linda Hamilton, so cool to see her outside of the Terminator franchise. I'm a huge fan of her work there. So great to see both of them. Very well shot. Yeah, the effects are better, more exotic location, more, better pacing. I just, enjoyed that movie a lot more than Volcano, which has some fun kind of destruction moments and things like that. I do like Anne Heche as well as Don Cheadle in there too. I think they're actually better than the lead role that Jones has. So Volcano, nothing really grabbed me emotionally that got me invested. Whereas Dante's Peak at least hit that. I don't think it's the best disaster movie ever made.
Right.
I still only gave it like 3 stars, but Volcano I only gave 2. So definitely enjoyed Dante's Peak better. Josh, what are your thoughts on these?
Dante's Peak is also my pick for the winner. I really enjoyed that one. And I feel like it's so interesting in this age of modern CGI and everything, like seeing an older film like this, when like they had very little CGI at their fingertips to use. And it makes you more amazed when they pull something off like this. Just all the effects work. I think once or twice, 1 or 2 shots, or I was like, oh, that was probably a miniature. But everything else, it was just like, it looks like they shot in camera. Like I have no idea how they did most of that. I was blown away. No pun intended. But yeah, you guys are right. The story is significantly better. Just like the characters feel a lot more well-rounded, and you get the relational aspect a lot more. That the relational emotional core is a lot stronger than in Volcano. The destruction and everything is you're just like in awe. Whereas I don't know. It's interesting. Like I feel like Dante's Peak is like what would happen if it was a real volcano, and Volcano is what would happen if no one believes it's a real volcano. Because like you just see like like to your point earlier, I think Bert, where you were saying there's no tension in Volcano, or it's not like it's not there. And I think that's because no one's freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, this is a volcano, people. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Like everyone's just kind of like, well, we should do something, and no one like. It's just night and day difference compared to like, we got to do things now. This is what we're going to do. We got to get out. And LA and Volcano, they're like, I think we'll make it. Like, I don't know. It's just two totally different. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It was not great. I think the only negative thing I could say about Dante's Peak is the use of the Wilhelm scream. For Paul at the end, it felt a little too comical for this, like, kind of, there was supposed to be a heavy emotional moment. When his boss didn't it couldn't get out of the car to jump off the bridge. When the wave took it over, there was the Wilhelm scream, right. And it was like, oh, that seemed a little disrespectful. But other than that, I don't have any. Well, okay, actually, I wish they wouldn't have done the rounds on "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." I wish they had just sung it all together. That was also a little too odd, but the rest of that was fantastic. And just like the acid, the lake, and then the grandma jump. Like, I don't know, like you usually don't see stuff like that, so that was really cool to see. But yeah, in Volcano, the CGI. I saw, I think, one or two matte paintings that I realized were matte paintings in Dante's Peak, but in Volcano, they literally had a matte painting with a cloud of steam or whatever that wasn't moving because it's painted. And I was like, what? What are you guys doing? You're supposed to use actual stuff there or something.
This is a motion picture.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that, to say the least. But yeah, and then I swear this was a TV version that I saw, because there were so many of the commercial break transitions, and then the credits rolled by. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but yeah, and there was a lot more unrealistic stuff going on, like just coming, because I saw Dante's Peak first, so just coming off of like the realism of like, and like, oh, the magma and get away, and like you see the destruction, whereas like kind of like what you guys were saying before, kind of just goes down, conveniently goes down the street. I like that they did reference the gradient, that's the right word, of the land, so it would change. Okay, that was a plus. But like, no one, what were we gonna say?
I made it believable when they did that.
Yeah, but up until that point, but even stuff like the ash, and you got the helicopter going, I'm like, that's not gonna work. We just saw in the movie it's not gonna work. But they didn't seem to care about that. And the magma was like way too hot for how close they were being or whatever. And like, oh, you saw someone incinerated before, but they're fine this time. I don't know. There's a lot of that. It was just, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. Yeah. I did like the powerful message at the end, with the police officer and the kid, where he's trying to find his mom. And then he's like, oh, they all look the same because they have everyone has ash over their face. Like that was the most powerful film or moment of the film right there, when it was like, oh, we're all human, we're all in this, irrelevant of the shade of our skin and everything. Like that was really cool. Dante's Peak I actually loved. I think out of all of your guys' films, I like that one the most, and then Armageddon. But I don't mean to sound overly harsh for Volcano, but for me, I had the thought at the end, it was like, it's almost like Roland Emmerich's Godzilla movie, where I don't know, and I know you like that one, Bert, but for me, it just kind of had a similar feel, where it's almost like they got the script, they realized what Dante's Peak was doing, and they're like, oh shoot, we can't do a real volcano because they're already doing that. We can't do it on a mountainside. Where else can we do it? They're like, oh, let's just put it, like, let's be edgy like an early 2000s film and put it in LA. We'll do a volcano in LA. I don't know. For some reason, that just reminded me of Godzilla. Maybe because that one's also in the US instead of.
I get it.
But Godzilla is a better movie than Volcano.
Definitely.
All right.
Our rating for you on those, Josh?
Oh, I gave Dante's Peak 4 stars and 2.5 on Volcano. It may slip to a 2. I don't know.
Yeah, about the same as me then. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I did think it was funny that both leads were supposed to be on vacation.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah, and neither of them are.
Right. Awesome. Great picks. All right, so Dante's Peak is the winner of that one, swept that category. Now we are on to Josh's second picks. What do you got, man?
I have Venom and Upgrade, both one-word film titles, both 2018. The similar thread of plot here is that both films are about intelligent symbiotes that are attached to and talk to their human hosts, giving them enhanced powers and abilities. So that's obviously Venom for the superhero film Venom, and then Upgrade that is in the form of AI, a little computer chip that talks to them. So other similarities are that both of the symbiotes have violent tendencies. And also Tom Hardy and Logan Marshall Green look a lot alike, which is another like, oh, that's weird. And also my friend found out that Logan Marshall Green has a twin, an identical twin. So there's 3 of them that look almost exactly alike. And I was like, whoa, on top of that. Yeah, major differences here. Something I know I picked up in the beginning as I was watching, as I watched both of them this time, was like Eddie's actions in Venom cause him to lose everything, his job, his fiance, his apartment. Whereas in Upgrade, Gray, the main character, someone else's actions cause him to lose everything. And so I thought that was interesting, the different ways they approached that. As far as different ways they approached the symbiote, Venom is definitely more humorous and has way more of a personality than STEM, the AI, although that's not that hard to figure because it's an AI, it's a computer. So, I mean, Venom's the funnier film too. Well, I think Venom's the funnier symbiote. I don't know which one's the funnier film overall, because there's some pretty funny parts in Upgrade. Just each of them have that where it's their reaction to when the symbiote takes over, and they're like, oh my gosh. Probably a little more so on Upgrade because it's a little more violent. But I thought some things were interesting, that the Venom initially wants alien invasion, and then he realizes he's more powerful and free if he's the only symbiote, so he seeks to stop the invasion. STEM wants to be the only one and the only STEM to exist. So spoilers here if we haven't seen Upgrade. But so he plots to stop the person who can make more. So they both kind of have a similar goal. They come to a similar goal there. STEM wants to be human and needs a host. Venom needed a host to survive. So differences there. But or I should say, while Venom needed a host to survive, STEM wanted a host to thrive, if you will. Yeah. So, and then, obviously STEM wants complete control and Venom doesn't mind coexisting with Eddie. It was interesting as I was trying to think about what Eddie's goals were, because he kind of gets carried along for most of the film, which is fine. I didn't have any problem with that watching it, but thinking about it afterwards is like his really only clear goal that I could think of was he wants Anne back. And then he just kind of comes into, like, he does make a couple of right choices that later they comes into doing the right thing, but he doesn't want revenge because he knows it was his fault. Whereas Gray does want revenge because it wasn't his fault. Yeah. And then some fun thing here. Eddie goes from choosing to do nothing to choosing to do something, the right thing, where Gray goes from choosing to do something, the wrong thing, to wanting to do the right thing, but it's too late. And then ends up only being able to do nothing as his ability of choice is taken away from him. So different, like, weaving and conflicting patterns, I guess. And then one more, Eddie uses his power and gift, whereas Gray abuses his power and gift. So I thought that was interesting there. And that kind of leads to the way these films end. Like, obviously, I forgot, I've only seen Upgrade one at a time, so I forgot all the twists and how it ended. So that was pretty cool. You're like, you think you know it, you think that was the twist, and then there's another one, and then yeah, that was pretty mind blowing. And then, like, obviously it ends in just like a somber, like, well, dang. And it kind of I don't know. I like movies like that because I can't remember. There was another one we were talking about in the podcast where it ends kind of not great. Not that's bad, but not a happy outcome. And you just kind of have this like this, like, you just kind of sit with it for a minute. So I do like films that end like that for that reason, and that it's also different. But for me, Upgrade was the winner. But after looking at the characterization and things, it was really close, and I almost wanted to give the edge to Venom. But I think overall, Upgrade is a better movie. I like Venom a lot more than I did. I like it more this time than I did the first time I saw it. I have very few complaints with the film, but I think Upgrade is just a better film, and the cinematography is fantastic.
Yeah, great point. So, yeah, to me, there's a clear winner here as well. Upgrade, it has such a great visual style. The camera work is just really engaging, unique, just fun to watch. Really good editing. It's a much darker and grittier film. Great lead performance. Logan Marshall Green. I refer to him as discount Tom Hardy, but I really, honestly, between these two movies, I think his performance is better. I might just have to call Tom Hardy discount Logan Marshall Green now, because man, this guy really gave it his all and just did an incredible job with his performance. What a difficult, role to play. All that's going on emotionally with him, and having this thing in your head, like all that is just really well played. Feels very realistic and grounded. You totally buy into it, the whole way through. So very impressive on that front. It's kind of you'd almost consider, I can kind of consider it a modern version of RoboCop. Kind of has that kind of vibe to it a little bit. It's much better than the RoboCop remake they did a few years ago. And so yeah, I really enjoy Upgrade. I think the action sequences are great. Just the whole way through, I just really enjoyed watching it. Venom, this is just wacky. It's kind of goofy. There's really not a lot of serious stuff, and I guess you call it a dark comedy because they're talking about some kind of like killing people and stuff like that, but it's very silly. I mean, it's really the lobster tank scene to me just kind of is a snapshot of the entire film. Like, just sum up the movie in that one scene. It's just kind of just silly and like very over the top, and Tom Hardy is giving it his all. I will say he's all in on whatever he's doing. I'm not, it doesn't connect with me on any level. I'm familiar with the comic book character, and to me, this just didn't quite vibe with that for whatever reason. It didn't
with
work.
Eddie or Venom?
Both. I felt both.
Oh, really?
Silly. Yeah. Both to me were just too kind of comedic and kind of just trying to be funny, and like, that's just not in the comics. He's just, the ones that I read, at least, there's tons of versions of the character now, but he was just a kind of killing machine, basically. So I kind of wish that Upgrade had been about Venom. You know what I mean? Like, if they had captured that tone, I think it would have worked a lot better. So yeah, and the villain is very generic and forgettable in Venom. Even though I like Riz Ahmed as an actor, I think he's just very one note and just poorly written, honestly. So I think the performances are fine, for what they're trying to go for. It's just the direction and the script that they had just didn't quite work for me. So Venom, I'm really not a fan of that movie. I think the sequel is far superior.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think Let There Be Carnage is a lot better. So I only have Venom at 1.5 stars. Upgrade, I have it 3.5. So Upgrade for me wins this one. Bert, give us your thoughts on these.
Okay, I'll talk about Upgrade first. This is just really a refreshing sort of sci-fi action film. I like a lot of the ideas that are in this, and the presentation is really great. The fight scenes, I think it really helps an action film if they can bring something new to hand-to-hand combat, like The Matrix did, and like even Equilibrium, the gun kata stuff. Even those. I like that, and I feel like they do that here. And a lot of it's the camera work, because the camera will follow, almost like a mounted on the body somehow, and then as the body moves, it's jarring, but it definitely is unique, and I really like it. And so big points for that. And the story is just so much more interesting than you think it's going to be. All the twists and turns. I wasn't guessing at any of the twists, and I was very surprised multiple times. A lot of the bad guys are kind of generic, I will say, but being what's clearly a low budget film, it's amazing what they accomplished. And so that's Upgrade. And then Venom, I went in with low expectations, and I'm not sure even those were met in Venom. Honestly, after I watched Venom, I had to think, is this performance better or worse than we get from Topher Grace in Spider-Man 3?
Oh, no.
I don't necessarily blame Topher Grace, but honestly, I'm like, I actually like him better. And it's not that Venom overall is terrible. It's just such a throwaway kind of movie to me and I just don't get much out of it. Like, it's vaguely interesting at times and it's vaguely humorous at times, but yeah, it just really doesn't do much for me. I'd probably give it like 1 star. I mean, I would hate it if it was on, but it's just not anything I gravitate towards. So yeah, I'm definitely in camp Upgrade on this. I honestly, this is the second time I saw Upgrade, and I think Josh, you said it was your second time watching it. I forgot how good it was. I'm being on 4 stars with Upgrade, and I don't love all the gore, but it's just so original and fresh and exciting, and it's a very solid action film.
I think maybe part of it for me, as I was thinking about it for Eddie's character, is that, like, and again, I think you're right, Cam. I think Tom Hardy did a good job with it, but I think maybe it's just like the character, the way it was written, and I think the part of it, maybe that my hang up is anyway, is he doesn't have any confidence. And I mean, he starts out with confidence, he loses it. But I don't know, I can't think of the other film, but there's another film where a character is also lacking confidence throughout the film. And that one just like, it's just kind of like, you're just tense watching it. You're like, just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, I don't know, annoying, for lack of a better word. Because it's almost like he's kind of fumbling. I don't know how to describe it, but you can just see he lacks, his character, not Tom Hardy, his character lacks confidence, and it kind of makes it a little hard to watch.
Yeah, I'm not a Tom Hardy fan. I honestly haven't seen many movies of his that I've liked. In like third Batman film, I mean, if anything, he's my least favorite part of it. I don't even really like him as Bane, you know. So I that's my perspective. I know, Cam, you like Tom Hardy quite a bit. I don't know what it is. I just don't really Tom Hardy.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right, guys. Well, Upgrade takes the win on that one. So now we are down to my second pick, our final twin films. For my final twin film, I'm tagging in my twin. Get ready, here he comes. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Which one am I looking at?
I know, right? You're seeing double. I brought the Aqua shirt. I got the memo. So I'm here. We're going to talk about 2 great films. Well, 1 great film, in my opinion. Sky High and Zoom are their release dates. We've got July 29th, 2005 and August 11th, 2006. So right around the same time, which kind of fits into our criteria of twin movies.
Yeah.
They have very similar plots in the sense that they're both about young adults with superpowers who go to a school and are trained by older superheroes to save the world.
Yep.
So they kind of have that same premise going on. Although Sky High's focused a little bit more on the school and Zoom's kind of more of like a government facility. But the difference between these 2 movies is perspective. And the difference between them is all about the way that the superpowers and the characters are handled. So starting with Sky High, it's the son of the 2 most famous superheroes in the world, right? But he doesn't have any powers. So he's declared a sidekick and he's kind of an outsider socially. And he has to become a hero despite his adversities that he faces in school. Whereas Zoom is focused more on the adult hero, the aging superhero who has to train this new generation and defeat a villain from the past. You know what I mean? So they're kind of inverted versions of each other. I consider them like the good and evil twin of one another. So yeah, I love Sky High. I give it 4 stars. I think it's colorful and clean and simple. It's a great throwback to kind of the golden age of comic book superhero isms, like from the 60s and 70s. I think a lot of Chris Reeve's Superman influences in here, and you know, the likes. The special effects in this movie are just so good, so cool. A lot of practical stuff. There's a little bit of CGI here and there, but it's spliced in just enough to make it feel natural. But it's just a really great, relatable coming of age story with a cast of really fun characters that have unique powers that are really fun and interesting and not completely useless. Like Magenta can shapeshift, but only into a guinea pig. It's like they all have that kind of, it's a cool power, but it has like one kind of catch that makes it not super useful all the time. Like the boy who can melt, he can melt, which you wouldn't think would be very useful, but there's a lot of creative uses of their powers throughout the movie. And it's cool to see them discover their powers alongside the audience. Unlike Zoom, where in Zoom,
They all have kind of okay powers.
Right.
They're just not really very exciting. So it's like, obviously the little girl has super strength and she's like super, super strong and girly. And that's kind of the two things that clash with her character that make her kind of interesting. There's the invisible boy, but I'll get into Zoom a little bit later. The comedy in Sky High works really well. It's super funny. And it's all funny because it's character focused. It's character centric. I love Sky High. Like I said, I give it 4 stars. It's one of my favorite coming of age superhero stories. All right, so going into Zoom, this is a movie I like much less. This is a film that I recently rewatched the other day, and it feels like a trailer. It feels like a 2-hour trailer because it's a series of montages where these teenage superheroes with powers kind of are just creating these miscellaneous gags that have nothing to do with the overall story. So you would want the story to be, we have to teach these kids who are brand new to superheroisms, and we have to teach them how to use their powers and become heroic and stop the villain. And instead, it's just kind of, they suddenly work. Like there's no feeling of progression throughout the movie. It's just like they're kind of always causing trouble, and then at the end they triumph. The humor, to me at least, in this movie just falls flat on its face. It's really not very funny, even though there's some great comedy guys. I think Tim Allen's really funny in a lot of stuff. Chevy Chase obviously is a comedic classic actor. But the way that they're handled in this is in such a PG way that it's kind of lacking that punch that makes their comedy specifically really funny. So without that, it kind of just feels like this. They feel very out of place in this movie, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, there's also too much CGI used in Zoom, I think, especially when it comes to their powers. They're all CGI-based powers. None of them can be done practically because he either turns invisible or she's levitating things, or super strength, which super strength does have the most practical stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of CGI, especially with the inflataboy who can like inflate his body. I know that's not really his name, but like inflate his body in different ways, and it looks very unnatural and weird.
But anyways,
that's Zoom and Sky High. I give Zoom 1 star. I did not enjoy it. I look forward to it being over as soon as I started. So Sky High is the winner for me. What do you guys think?
Josh, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Same kind of thing. Like Sky High is a classic. Zoom is, I don't know. I feel like it gets worse every time I watch it. Like Tim Allen is the highlight, but like even like you said, it's almost like the I don't know. He feels like restrained. I don't know. Like he doesn't seem like his normal hilarious self. And there's pieces of it. And like I really like this isn't necessarily just him, but I like the drive-through scene where they're going to get takeout. Like that's a fun scene. And but overall, I didn't think about what you said about it being like a trailer, but that's a really good point. Like there is a lot of montages. Like usually a film will have like one montage, but this was a lot of montages. You're right, and it feels like the entire movie, like the government people are just like the parent, kind of like, get your act together. This is dire. This is about to be it, and then like they don't. And then they don't, and then they don't, and then you're just like, guys, someone's got to take this seriously at some point. Yeah, I do like the kind of like a past superhero kind of thing they're going on with Tim Allen's character, where he was a great superhero, and so I do kind of like those story elements that they kind of hint to about the past. And I forget the actor's name, but the main villain, seeing him return from Air Bud was pretty cool, even though it was short role. And then I don't know, the end is just kind of like, all right, we're done. The boss fight's over. So that was kind of disappointing too. But yeah, Sky High, far better film. Interestingly enough, poor Kate Mara was in 2 horrible superhero films. Hopefully if she gets cast in another one, hopefully she's fine, but hopefully the movies are much better. But yeah, Sky High is infinitely a better film.
Yeah, and you want me to pile on? Is that what you want me to do? Okay, yeah, Zoom. I'll start with that one. I honestly, I was as I was watching it, I was thinking, I wonder if I was 9, if I would even like this film. You know, let's see, Sky High came first, right? You said,
Yes, I believe so. Sky High was July 29th, 2005.
yeah, and yeah, because Zoom really kind of feels like sort of a rush to making a similar type of film to capitalize on that one, because a lot of the twin films are made at the same time. But I almost feel like someone saw this and said, "Oh, we could totally do this with our studio," you know. And you said it that it seemed like a trailer. To me, it just seemed like a TV movie. You know, and you like indicated the PG.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even make the cut really at a theater. So that, I guess that's. Oh, and one more thing I'll say about Zoom. You know, star rating. So what I did was I didn't like it at all, but I thought I got to, you know, something to it here. There's something to it here. So I gave it a 1/10 of a point every time I laughed at one of Tim Allen. Okay, and so it gets half a star. So that,
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's great.
yeah. So it's just not all bad, right? And yeah, we love Sky High in this household. Watched it numerous times. I mean, just, they the way they use the powers. Like you said, there's always a catch, and it's so funny. And most of the pratfalls work, and the acting is great. It's just kind of fun how the whole thing about it being up in the clouds. I mean, all of it.
Oh yeah,
A great film. I'm probably at 4 stars on Sky.
I agree. Sky High, man, that movie's so good. Such a great cast.
All right, I'm coming back in. So
Which one are
yeah.
you now? Which one are you?
Yeah, Sky High all the way. You guys are all correct in all of your assessments. I'm a huge fan of Sky High. One thing that was not mentioned is all the cameos, which are so much fun. Bruce Campbell, Linda Carter. I mean, just so many great ones. So great casting. You know,
Wait, that's Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Wonder Woman is the principal.
That's
Principal
right.
Powers.
Whoa. I just got that.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So great stuff. Yeah, we've watched Sky High, he and I, so many times over the years together. It's one that we watch constantly. Zoom, I've only seen it once, and that was enough. Never watch it again. So, all right, clear winner here is Sky High. That's it, folks. That is our first ever Film Fights podcast. We're gonna do these more in the future, all kinds of different movies. But this one was twin films. It was a unique idea that Bert came up with, and we wanted to explore it, and it was a lot of fun. So hope you guys had as much fun watching and listening as we did talking about these movies. Let us know your favorite twin films in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.